mind the fame and the attention, but he was so giving that you can't go into that crowd and not bump into somebody who knows somebody that Elvis did something for. He's famous for wanting the latest and greatest cars. One of his few vices, he'd get the latest and greatest in cars, and he'd say, "Hey, you take the Cadillac, I'm in the Lincoln now." We have a car museum with about 15 cars in it. He gave away about 80 cars. Very generous. He gave jewelry to all sorts of folks. He had pieces created specifically for friends and contacts, and he was just a very giving guy. When he died, he was ostensibly bankrupt. How could that be? Well, he gave so much of what he had away. He didn't have a lot of cash assets. There was Graceland, so that was the one thing we had to leverage to try and turn into a moneymaker to fund the trust for Lisa Marine. So the love for him is just incredible, never ending, hopefully. I said this the other day. People go by his gravesite, which we had to move to the property not long after he was first buried at Calvary. We had to move him up beside the mansion. People, today are out there crying over, visiting the grave. It's a very emotional experience for a lot of folks. And I said this the other day, we could fill the swimming pool right beside the gravesite with the tears that are shed by these fans. And then every year at Elvis Week, they keep coming on back. Of course, the off years are a little less intense than that picture, but the 5-year anniversaries are usually a pretty big deal. So all of those things, that's some stuff about who's visited. This was the presentation that we gave literally to the state of Tennessee. We've accumulated 120 acres. Graceland itself is about 35 acres. So we've quadrupled the size of Graceland through property acquisition. Huge opportunity in the hotel space with folks in this particular age bracket, a lot of disposable income, they had a lot of travelers, right? So we would fill up the Heartbreak Hotel with basically $100 a night kind of business, because it was a no-service hotel, right? And all the high-end business would go to the Peabody, or was the Hyatt at the time, is now the Hilton, and maybe the Radisson downtown or one of those places. So that kind of the $200 a night or better business would go downtown, and they would travel down to visit us. Again, think back to that 500 room nights a night in Memphis are here for Graceland. So we want to be able to take advantage of that. So we pitched a 450 room, full service luxury resort in Whitehaven, of all places. The bankers all took a look at that and said, not interested, not one of them. Too risky. No one would build a luxury hotel in Whitehaven. But we pressed on and went to the private equity markets, kind of the leeches and the loan sharks of the business world, and with a lot of hooks and onerous terms, they helped fund the hotel. We were carrying a 9 1/8 interest rate. Today interest rates, if you follow that stuff, are less than 1%. At the time we were borrowing this money, we're running about 3%. We're paying 9, paying 3 times the going rate for money because of the risk involved. Okay. Nobody wanted to fund that thing, and if it flopped, nobody wanted to be attached to it. But this wasn't just a hotel project, which I've tried to explain to bankers a number of times. Hotels have certain profiles, certain lenders will do only so much, but this is a destination, okay? This is certainly not Disney World, but this is the Orlando of the entertainment world, right? And these fans are loyal, dedicated, keep coming back year after year. We've been around for so long. When your friends and family come to town, they probably are thinking about going to visit Graceland while they're here, right? In fact, that's how most Memphians go, is taking somebody from out of town. And that we would be able to fill this hotel. In fact, if we only got half of those 500 room nights, we could pay for the hotel. We got 250 of those 500 room nights every night, we'd be good. This year's our third full year in operation. We will be roughly 76% occupied in 450 rooms. Somebody got a calculator, figure that out. It's somewhere in the 300s a night, 300 rooms a night at least, right? At a much higher rate than we could get at the Heartbreak Hotel. So that was the major component of the plan, was to build a $95 million hotel where nobody else wanted to build one. To kind of take advantage, it says 86, 87, but ended up at 95. It wasn't my fault, I swear. Yes?
How far away is the hotel from Graceland?
If you are Graceland, we have a little corporate office in the middle, and the hotel is just north of it.
It's really
So there's actually a wooded area in the back of the property. You can walk from the hotel to the backside of Graceland. So it's, you know, ostensibly inside of a block, right? So pretty tight. And the 120 acres is really contiguous around the mansion and on both sides of the street. So we pitched this, and we pitched the idea of redoing that 50-year-old strip center that we were using for exhibits and things. And, you know, like I said, it was kind of a mess. And we wanted to spend $40 million on that. Our managing shareholder, Lisa Marie, and Authentic Brands Group funded this initially, acquired the properties north of the mansion and contributed it to the project. We knew we were going to be able to grow incremental sales by filling that hotel, so there's, you know, certain mathematical components to this that we knew were going to work to help fund those bonds and then remove the $85 million in debt that we put in place to build this thing. This was just a rough estimate of what we thought the different components of the TDZ would produce in the first full year of operating the hotel, which is $5.7 million. We actually beat that by $800,000. You know, there's an organization called MuniCap that does these kind of computations. They look at these things and, you know, run them out over a number of years and determine how much bond debt you can afford. You know, that gave us enough to get to about $95 million in bonds. We were generating enough that we could issue $105 million in bonds. You know, any investors out here? When you got those kind of 3% interest rates, if you put your money in the bank, you can count on about 2%, right? Okay? These bonds are paying 5.5% to almost 7%, locked in for anywhere from 20 to 30 years. There's a lot of cash out there that was looking for a place better than just sticking in the bank and earning 1 or 2%. So those bonds sold in a day and a half. It was incredible, and we created the bonds only a year after we opened. We didn't think it would happen for 5. So we were able to get rid of the private equity debt, and actually we're debt free at the end of 2017 because of all these things working together to drive money. This is what the campus looked like before we got rolling. Let's get myself oriented here. This is the old Heartbreak Hotel here, now flattened. It's a parking lot. This space was 2 apartment complexes that we acquired, and it totally stripped. So it's essentially undeveloped land, right? This is the old set of strip malls that were in place. The mansion's up over here. And this was also a big apartment complex that we owned for a long time and actually ran until the time was right to build this hotel. So we were actually in the apartment business for a long time. So it was a fixer-upper, we'll call it, right? That's a shot of the music room in the house. We started small with this archive studio, which is kind of a theater type environment, where we could do archives presentations of different artifacts, and do teaching sessions and stuff like that. It's kind of a arena look, but in a room not much bigger than this. That was an easy thing to do. That was a little more difficult. That is just the middle section of that hotel. There's 150 rooms here, there's 150 rooms there, and there's 150 rooms that run off over there, as well as meeting conference center, banquet facilities, catering kitchen, all those things, 2 restaurants, lobby bar, coffee shop, all those kinds of things you find in full service hotels are in that space. That's the old Heartbreak, which